Chia! It's Sean. Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at the debut Felix Jaehn album, I. Jaehn rose to fame a few years ago, being one of the leading producers in the tropical house, moving into the mainstream along with like Kygo and Robin Schulz. Unlike those two though, Felix has kind of stayed in the world of tropical house, while like Kygo and Schulz have experimented a lot more with other genres as well, or more or less. But Jaehn kind of has really stayed central just to his main brand name of tropical house, really just kind of not really changing it up at all and keeping it right in the box where he started. Despite that, which would normally drag an artist down a lot of the time, he is still a rather big name inside of EDM. Before I really indulge myself into the album, I really got to kind of talk about how he made it a 2-disc album, which typically, if you're just making a 2-disc album, like if it's a deluxe or something, I don't really have that big of a problem. However, I do think it's kind of ridiculous to have that format when the second disc is just a greatest hits till now, and yet all his hits were before his debut album, so it kind of seems kind of tacky to just add it on there at the end. Additionally, on top of that, the rest of the album kind of was like, well, an album. It like all sounded like it should go together, and not that really that his style has changed. Like I said, he's kind of stayed right in the same lane as he started, but it's definitely it definitely breaks up. There's a definite switch from, okay, this is all album work, all right, this is the popular shit. For the sake of how I want to review the album, and that would kind of complicate things, I'm just gonna cut the fat off the bottom of it and just focus on the main first disc. The album pretty much consists of the same thing, like I've said, he's kind of been repetitious, but it's 2 sub-styles of tropical house. The first being the most generic, I say generic, but not in a bad way, but like just exactly the main style of tropical house. And then there's also tropical house, but with more pop, aka not really a drop in it at all, kind of like Cheerleader kind of, which was, if you didn't know, an edit he did that he made popular. It's 15 tracks long, and typically if there's a kind of a looming style like this where nothing really changes too drastically, it would be kind of boring. But the way he disperses the good songs throughout the entire album kind of breaks it up and makes it seem not as underwhelming after the first like 6 or 7 songs, where it's just like dreadful to get through the rest. He kind of mixes the good with the bad throughout the entire. Those tracks that he did switch out throughout the album that were a higher quality than a lot of the rest, majorly were the singles Hot to Touch, Feel Good, Cool, and the other one, Like a Riddle. The only track that wasn't a single that I really felt deserved some good acknowledgement was LOV, or Love. Additionally to what I was saying earlier about the 2 subgenres, the definite dominant genre in this is the typical tropical house, with the popular stuff being much more forgettable, and there's not like a lot that really works with it other than just being a pretty basic pop song. And the only real memorable moments in the popular songs are like the choruses in Jenny or Honolulu. They just kind of, it's like you'll be listening through the entire thing and you'll just catch that one glimpse and be like, oh, there's that part, and then you never really hear it again.
I wish I could get some different curtains for that, because I think it looks shitty.
The features do their job. I mean, nothing outstanding, nothing really underwhelming. And it being an EDM album, that's kind of understandable, considering I assumed most of the focus would be on the production and not really the vocal performances. Although this does play into a problem when, like I mentioned earlier, half the songs are these pop songs that don't really have an EDM drop at all, and you're not really trying to use the vocalist to make up for anything, so you just have a basic EDM chorus and verses paired with a basic pop beat, or tropical pop beat, and this kind of just makes for an overall bland song, or songs as for this case. And this really is what I feel is the root that is wrong with the album, as if either all the songs or not all the songs, but some more songs had to drop, or the vocalist and the writing was a bit better. Either of those would have really made the album a lot better, considering with like it is like this, it really doesn't expose itself too much in the actual album outside of the singles. And the pop songs are kind of needed too, because it's like, if it was just these tropical drops for 15 songs or however many it would be, it would kind of just make all the good songs, like Cool and stuff, seem more just blended and not really polished in tune like they do without it. It's kind of like, for the best, you need the worst. And that being said, the creme de la creme of the album are the singles that have the highest notch of tropical house beats that you can get. The singles, which I thought were the best songs on the album and actually pretty good songs, are actually the ones with the catchy hooks and verses too, the better writing. So it kind of makes me like wonder why they didn't put those more on the pop songs. And so like the entire album would be more interesting. Like, this is the definition of how you become a singles artist, by putting all your efforts toward 3 or 4 songs and then showing those and then just being like, here's also some other stuff we came out with. The songwriting is also very stereotypical for an EDM album. I mean, there's not really much there, and just by looking at the art and reading the names of the songs, you can kind of tell it's a really feel-good album. For example, here's just a few of the song names: Cool, Honolulu, Hot to Touch, Feel Good, Forever Young, Love. It's really not that hard to see what this album is trying to be, but often this is too common among EDM albums, especially somebody at the higher caliber like Felix Jaehn. And to be honest, this really goes just beyond Felix Jaehn. EDM artists everywhere, I feel like, are really, now that EDM producers in general are starting to become more mainstream, it's not just the vocalists that are really breaking through. Not easier, but a more accomplishable thing for vocalists to do is evolve their sound by just having a different genre of music playing or something while they sing. Well, for EDM, it's their voice is their production, so they kind of are bound to this weird field of how do I change my sound without changing my voice. For example, this happened with Kygo, who I mentioned earlier. Right after Cloud9 came out and was very successful with like Firestone Stole the Show, he comes out with his next song, It Ain't Me, with Selena Gomez, which is just a watered down version of his style of tropical house. And this is, I don't really have a problem with that, but I feel like artists are trying to have a hard time coming up with a really respectable way to come up with a way to evolve their sound as a producer. Felix is facing the same predicament, but even earlier in his career, just at the beginning of his debut album, which could be even more problematic. He somewhat caves in with Cool, with featuring Marky Basie and Gucci Mane, and where he doesn't really throw the whole bucket onto the song, but you can definitely tell there's some drips where he's trying to get some mainstream appeal in there and really kind of make sure that his music is still listened to more than just whatever fans he may have. Then to worry me on top of that is the double album aspect, and how that is probably just a result of him or his label not feeling too confident about how the performance of the album was going to do. So they're just like, we need to toss that on, and hopefully that'll garner enough streams and listens and buys and all this and that it won't be a flop if it is. The singles may only be the really good part about this album, but the bad parts aren't really enough to make me give this a devastatingly low score. Still, the way that Felix plays into this kind of searching to find his sound, but at the same time really sticking to his roots at the same time, makes me want to give this a 4. Let me know what you thought about the album and the review in the comments below. Also, I have a kind of website thing I saw somebody else do, so I thought it kind of intrigued me. And all it is just some like yearly stuff that I chose for music like ages ago, and then also scores of albums that I won't be talking about actually in videos at all. Additionally, I'm gonna try to start doing reviews a bit more often, actually a lot more often, about one a day, just so I can get through a lot more. So yeah, that's all for today. See ya.